This is Casey with CAK Tutorials. This is my second video on JavaScript, and this video I'm going to be discussing some basics of JavaScript, including what is DOM, basic objects in JavaScript, also comments and writing to the page and to the console. So the first thing I want to go over is what is DOM. DOM stands for Document Object Model, and what that does is it allows us to create dynamic HTML. It is a W3C standard, and as you can see on their website here, they define it as a platform and language neutral interface that will allow programs and scripts to dynamically access and update the content, structure, and style of documents. So what does that mean? That just means that we are going to be able to use JavaScript to dynamically change the content. Now we kind of already know that. The reason why I brought up DOM is because it's kind of one of those key words that you're going to hear a lot, and it's important to recognize what DOM means. Included in DOM is HTML and CSS and JavaScript. You can go to w3.org/DOM. We'll have the link in the description if you want to read some more about that. So let's get into some JavaScript here. I'm going to go ahead and open up example 1 from my last tutorial. As you can see, I moved the script tag to the bottom of the body, and first thing I want to go over is comments. So what are comments? Comments are just an area reserved for any kind of personal notes. And these are things that you may want to reference, or other people that may view the script, you want them to view. This could be copyright information and things of that nature, or just could be a note to yourself like, this is the start of the script. And so this code isn't actually going to be ran. It's not going to be acknowledged as code because it's just a comment. It's only for when you're viewing the script. So if I run this, nothing will happen. The first way to comment is the double slash. So you put 2 slashes and then you put whatever information you want. You can put more than 2 slashes if you want. I can do a whole bunch of different slashes and type some stuff in. It doesn't matter as long as it starts with at least 2 slashes. The other use for comments would be if I do another alert, and just do an alert hi again, and there's my alert, I can actually comment out this alert with 2 slashes. So I save that, and now nothing happens. So you can actually take code that you have in there, and if you're debugging or you just want to remove something temporarily, you can just comment it out and it won't run that portion of the script. So there's a second way to do comments. The second way would be a slash and then an asterisk, and then at the end of your comment area you want an asterisk and then a slash. And what this does is it reserves all of the space in between those two for comments. So this entire area is now a comment area. So if you have a multiple line comment, you have a lot of information or description that takes up multiple lines, then you can just do this and you can just make this comment block. And as you can see, it still won't run the alert because it is in a comment area. So this is the second way to do comments. Again, it's just kind of for your own information sort of stuff that you want to put in there, or again, if you want to put some copyright information or something else that you want other people to see if they happen to open your script for whatever reason. The second thing I wanted to discuss are the 2 main basic objects that you'll be working with. Now, the main object you'll be working with is document, and I did kind of show this a little bit in the last tutorial when we did document.body. And what document is it's actually the document. It's all of the content in your body. Now, document itself doesn't really reference anything. You have to choose an object off of document. So I can do document.body, and that will actually get me the body element. So this entire body. The other thing I wanted to discuss is window. So window's different in the sense where it's the actual browser window. So this window, all of this white space here and the content included inside of it, this is the window. The easiest way to kind of understand what this is if I do an alert, and yep, let's do window, and I'll do inner height. And again, not a script that you have to memorize. In fact, there are different methods to get the height and width of certain objects or the window. There's some cross-compatibility things there, and that's something I'll cover in a future tutorial. So again, this is just for an example to explain what window and document are. And this is actually going to get us a number that represents the inner height of the window, the actual height of the window. So if I save this, we can see 533. So now if I go and actually check the body, so document.body, and this one is actually offset height, so it's a little bit different, and I'll save that, and we'll see our window is 533, and I refresh, and now I get 200. Well, why did I get 200? Because the content that I have in here only takes up 200 pixels, whereas the window is actually 533 pixels. So that's the difference. Is the document is everything in the document, or everything within the body here. If I'm referencing this body or an element, that's what you're going to be referencing. So you can't get the offset height of just the document. The document is just kind of a starting point to get all of the other elements that are in here. Now, if I had a lot of content in here and I had a scroll bar, then the document would be bigger. It would be a larger height than the window. So those are the main differences between the window and document objects. The other thing that I wanted to discuss with document is it's really, I consider the main way that you're going to get objects, at least starting, it's definitely the easiest way. Again, this format here, you're going to see over and over again. Now, the next thing I'm going to discuss actually doesn't follow by the same standard, but usually most things are going to start with the first word with a lowercase, and then every word after with an uppercase. And as you can see, ID, even the D is lowercase. And that's pretty standard, and you'll see that a lot. Again, the next thing I'm going to discuss actually doesn't follow that. But it's a good thing to kind of remember if you're confused about something isn't running. Check to make sure that it's following this. Most of them do. So what is get element by ID? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. An element is any of these tags that we have in here. And as you can see, I've already given this div an ID. So you actually give it the attribute ID, and then in quotations you put what you want to name it. And this is completely unique. You can name it whatever you want. You don't want to name more than one object the same. So I'll cover that in just a second. But in order to get this div, what I want to do is in quotations, and again, you can use double quotes or you can use single quotes. And that's for any string in JavaScript. I prefer using single quotes because HTML I use double quotes, and if I'm going to do anything in line here, that kind of helps differentiate. You know, if I'm just skimming through with my eyes, I can see, oh, that's single quote. That must be JavaScript. But again, you can use double quotes if you want. I'm going to go ahead and put in these quotes element. And let's just do an alert on this, because just document.getElement by ID and specifying that, it's not actually going to give us any sort of output. So if I save this, and there I can see I have my object, and it's an HTML div element. So that's this div element. That's what I got when I ran this. So let's actually do some modifications on this. And this is something I actually did in my last tutorial as well, where we're changing the background color. Let's just stick with that for now. And so I'm changing this to green. So if I save this and refresh, we can see, there we go, we're green. And so this is a way to modify a specific object on the page. Now again, I said you don't want to give two elements the same ID. So if I have these two elements, and to simplify things, this is what I'm going to start with. I'm going to remove this styling. And that's just so they're not taking up the same exact space in the document. And I'm going to remove all of my script for now and just have my little comment area. So all I have is two divs with the same ID. Now if I save that, there we can see we have two hello worlds. Okay, each of these are in their own div. And so both of these have the same ID, and I give the styling color of green. See, it only changes the first one. The second it sees the first one, it stops running because it's assuming there's only one with that ID, and that's one of the problems you can come across in with that. Again, if you know HTML, you probably already know don't give an object or two objects the same ID. That's what class is for, and there's a way to get those in JavaScript, but that's something I'm going to be covering in a future tutorial. So again, this is something where we only want one element with the same ID, and the way we get any elements with an ID, and this could be any element at all. If there's a tag, if it's an A tag or a span or a paragraph, it doesn't matter. If it has an ID, you can get that with the document.getElementById. And then you do in parentheses and in quotations, you put that same ID of that element. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is how to actually change the content within an object. Now I'll get to actually writing directly to the screen with script in just a second here. Since we already have our getElementById, what I want to do now is try to modify the actual content that's within this element. So everything between these two tags. So I'm going to save this now that I've removed my second div and I've changed it so that we don't have any color styling. Go ahead and save that, and now we're back to just hello world. So how do we actually modify the content in here? The first way I'm going to discuss, and the easiest way if you want to change all of the content, is inner HTML. So inner HTML, what does it do? It does exactly what it says. Is it actually changes the HTML within this element. So if I was to do hello Casey, now I'm actually going to change the inner HTML of this element to hello Casey. So I save that, and there we go, it changed. Now, the other things you can do with inner HTML is you can actually put in any HTML in there. So if I wanted to make it bold, I can actually put in my bold tag right into these quotations and refresh, and there it's bold. And if I actually look and inspect the element here, I'm going to see that here's our element. The things in, the content inside of it has actually changed to exactly what's inside this quotation. So that's the first way of doing that. Again, we can do this for any element, no matter how you get it. So if I want to do it to the body, now it's not going to look much different, but you'll notice that my div is gone. That's because I started writing from here and I removed all of this content within my body. So now nothing in here exists. In fact, the one thing to remember now that I've changed my entire body, what don't I see in here is my script. So if I change this back, see, there's my script. I can actually see it and read it within here. If I change the entire body HTML, I'm removing the rest of my script too, because it replaced everything inside of here in between this body tag and this body tag with whatever I put in here. So that's something to remember if you do have a different placement of that. If for some reason you're changing your entire body's inner HTML, which I will admit is kind of unusual. I'm sure there would be a purpose for that. But if you're going to change it, if you have a script in there or any content that's going to be important, it's going to be gone. It's going to be overwritten. So that's one thing to remember. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is how do we just write to the screen? So if I want to write to the screen, we use document because we want to write to the document, and all you have to do is document.write. Then we do our parentheses, and within our parentheses we have a string. So I do my quotation marks, and I'll do hello Casey again. So I'll save that, and we'll see there we have hello Casey. So document.write actually wrote directly to the page, and this is going to be dependent on where this script is. Document.write I wouldn't say is commonly used. Usually if you're going to modify the contents of an element, you're going to do it directly instead of writing to the screen. You know, there is a time and place for this, but again, it's going to rely on where the script is. And for the most part, you're probably going to be in the head. you can do it at the bottom or within the body. But again, this is how you would write directly to the screen if that's something you need to do. Again, that might be useful for debugging or just kind of information if you want to spit out a variable, some value to the screen that you want to look and make sure is right. You could use it for that purpose, or if you want to write HTML, you could write HTML directly to the page with document.write. The last thing that I'm going to discuss is console. So console is actually for the purposes of debugging and giving yourself information. So I haven't discussed variables. I'm going to do that in not the next tutorial, but the tutorial after that. But let's just create a variable. So this is just going to hold some value for me. Let's just say it equals hi. Now I want to write this variable out to a log so that I can view it. And I talked about using document.write just a second ago for this purpose. I've also talked about doing that with alert, where you can send out some value and so that you can check it to make sure you're right. So I want to make sure that A actually equals hi. One way to do it, and this won't work in all browsers, it's only browsers that have this functionality, and you'll have to check to see what browser you have and whether or not it has that. But if I want to write A to the console log, and I refresh here, and I go to my console, I see hi. Now here's my console. I'm in Chrome. One way to get to it is you can actually right-click and go to Inspect Element, and then go to the Console tab. Another way of doing it is just simply pressing F12, and that's going to bring up this section. And again, you'll have to click on the Console tab. It'll by default be in the Elements tab. So this is good for writing information to the log, just for your information. Again, this is mainly for debugging and certain things. And I can just put a string here and just write hi, or let's actually change it up and write bye to the log. So there it says bye. So you can just put a string in here. The only reason why I used a variable is because more commonly you're going to want to be checking values and things of that nature. But I'll again cover variables in a future tutorial and go over exactly how to use them. Beyond that, that's everything that I wanted to cover in this tutorial. In my next tutorial, I will be talking about some more basics of JavaScript, including the semicolon, white space, breakup in code, and I will start discussing variables, but I'm pretty much going to stick with how you actually format variables properly. In the one after that, I'm actually going to start getting in depth about variables, how to use them, the different data types, and other such things, and I will even start a discussion on objects and arrays. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment, and I will see you next time.